from Nathaniel School of Music. I'm here to talk to you guys about the circle of fifths. Now, the circle of fifths is a very useful tool to enable you to learn music as well as to compose music. So, whether you're a keyboardist, a guitarist, or a singer, or any other musician, it should help you along the way. So, in today's video, I am trying to focus on scales, intervals, chords, and dominant resolution, and to show you how the circle of fifths can be applied to each concept to help us compose music and to remember a lot of things a lot more easier, right? I'm first going to write the circle of fifths on the board. It's very simple. You start with C major scale, which is the scale which has no sharps nor flats, and then you move clockwise to generate the scales which have sharps, and then you move anti-clockwise to generate the scales which have flats, right? So from C major I move up a fifth. So the fifth can be calculated in either of the two ways. It can be a perfect fifth interval from that scale. So a fifth from C is G. Another way to get to G is to just count alphabets from A, B, C, D, E, F, G. As you know, music just has these 7 letters. So C, D, E, F, G. G is the fifth. So I'm going to write down G major. And the interesting thing to look when you compare the two scales is the only difference between C major and G major is the F sharp. So it's a good relationship between the two scales because you know they are almost the same. The only difference between C and G is in that F sharp, right? And as I move along the circle, you'll see that the same relation follows. So the next scale will be formed by moving 5 letters of a fifth after G. So it will be G, A, B, C, D, right? So the D major scale will have exactly what G major had, and it will have another sharp, which will be C sharp, right? So the only difference between D major and G major is this C sharp. So we have A major, which has F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp, and then right after A major you have E major, which has F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp. So as you will realize, even in the sharps or the addition of sharps, there is again a pattern of fifths. If you look at the letter C, 5 letters after C is G, 5 letters after G is D. So the new sharp will be 5 letters from the previous sharp, right? So similarly, the new scale is 5 letters or a fifth above the previous scale. So which is clearly why it's called the circle of fifths. Everything here moves in fifths. The next scale is B major, which has the exact number of sharps and flats which E had, along with one more, which happens to be A sharp, which is 5 letters above D. And right after B major, you might think that I should be writing F, but since B major already has an F sharp, I would write F sharp. And also note that F sharp is the 5th note in the B major scale. So the 5th concept still flows. And the new sharp will be E sharp. For theoretical reasons, we write it as E sharp, but as you know, E sharp is nothing but F. The new scale will be C sharp, which would have exactly what F sharp has, but one more. It's 5 letters after E sharp, which will be B sharp. And as you know, B sharp is nothing but C. Beyond C sharp major, the next scale would ideally be G sharp major. But since it cannot have more than 7 sharps, obviously, since there are only 7 letters in music, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, we cannot continue along this path. So that's where we start writing our scales in this direction, right? So the sharp scales got populated in the clockwise direction, and now we are going to populate our next family of scales in this direction. So instead of now moving 5 letters up, C to G, G to D and so on, we move 5 letters down, right? So it's still a fifth pattern, it's just that you're moving 5 letters down. So the first scale you'll get in this direction would be F. And as you will know, in the key of F major, the notes are F, G, A sharp or B flat, C, D, E. But for theoretical reasons, we don't write it as A sharp because there is already another A in the F major scale. So you'd rather call it B flat. So F major has one flat, which is called B flat, right? And moving on in this direction, you could move 5 letters below F, which will be B, and thus you will call it B flat. But if you didn't want to think that way, the new flat which gets formed becomes the new scale when you move in this direction. So B flat will become the new scale. So B flat major, which will have B flat, and then you move 5 letters below B flat rather than up. So B, A, G, F, E. And you get E flat. So I'm just going to move on the same way. The new scale is going to be E flat major, which will have all this and one more, which will be A flat, and then you move down. Our new scale A flat comes here, and the new flat will become D flat. And then I have D flat major, which will have all of the above plus one more, G flat. And then I have G flat major, which will have all of the above plus one more, which is C flat. Now as you know, C flat is nothing but B, right? But it's there. So I'm just going to use it. The new flat will become F. As you can see, in this direction I've got only flats. In that direction I have only sharps. So by writing it down this way, you have a great way to compare two scales and also remember them better at the same time, right? It gives you a more structured approach to learning all this. And now, as you know, we have only 12 scales in the book. So if you observe here, I will have 14. But do note that B major is given preference over C flat major. Obviously, you don't want to call something C flat when you would rather call it B, which is much more easier. And also, C sharp and D flat are one and the same. You just represent the scale either using flats or using sharps. And F sharp is similar to G flat. Right? So here is how we use the circle of fifths to remember and use scales. In the next session, we are going to talk about how we can use the circle of fifths for intervals and chords.